All right, welcome back. Our next guest says that if the left really wants to put an end to all the violence and rioting we've been seeing in the country, the protests, they should be working with the president instead of blaming him. Joining us now is James Carafano, national security expert and vice president of foreign and defense policy studies at the Heritage Foundation. James, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. How should the president be handling this situation? We've seen 100 days of this now.
Right. A lot of people say, just go in and take over. So let's look from the practical side. If you added up every single federal law enforcement there is in the entire federal government, that's a little more than the size of the New York City Police Department. And most of those guys have day jobs. They're already guarding buildings. They're on the border. So even if the federal government wanted to move in and take over, there's not enough federal cops to do that. And then when you look at the National Guard, look, the Guard is great. They're great at guarding stuff, and they are great at providing assistance to civil authorities, but they're not really designed to deal with armed militias in American cities. They can do that fine in Mogadishu, but not so much in Portland. So the only way to make the streets of a city safe is when local, state, and federal officials work together. Then you can do that. As a matter of fact, we've got lots of examples where that's happened. And where it's not happening is fundamentally where city and local officials are creating space, really enabling the violence to take place, either by hamstringing the police, not letting them do their jobs, not letting the federal law enforcement come in and help them, or having district attorneys just create a door where they're not indicting people, or they're just putting them out on bond and throwing them back out on the street.
Yeah. You got an op-ed here we want to show people called "The Left Wrongly Attacking Trump's Efforts to End Rioting in Kenosha and Elsewhere," where you say to address the organized criminal violence destroying our neighborhoods, it's vital that local, state, and federal officials work together. That requires bipartisan cooperation, not partisan finger pointing. Should I take from that this is not going to be resolved until after this election?
Well, I don't know if it will be resolved after the election. Places like Portland and Seattle refuse to let the federal government work with them, then they're just going to continue to have the same problems. Like even in Portland, we've seen signs that they've been increasingly turning to the federal government because they simply cannot manage this on their own. And we often talk about, well, bring in federal law enforcement, bring in National Guard. Places like Kenosha, Wisconsin, that worked great. I mean, as soon as the National Guard showed up in Kenosha and additional resources came in, the rioting there evaporated. But the other really key role, the one thing the federal government can bring to the table, and you're going to see this running up to the election, and I think if we have the same administration, it will continue, which is investigating criminal activity, because the process of organizing criminal activity is in itself a very serious crime. The Congress created a law to go after that. It's called the RICO law. And RICO investigations are the way you're going to find out who's funding this, who's organizing it, who's directing it, and putting those people in jail and taking their organizations apart.
Yeah. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk to China. President Trump strongly spoke about that in his press conference today, and he even tweeted about this a week ago, which I want to bring that up, where he says, just in, Chinese state media and leaders of China want Biden to win the U.S. election. If this happens, which it won't, China would own our country and a record-setting stock market would literally crash. He even re-emphasized today that if Biden is president, China will own the United States. Do you agree?
Well, let me be clear. I'm not partisan. I don't belong to a political party. I'm actually a registered independent, so I don't have a dog in this fight. So when I talk about what Biden would do, it's purely from an analytical standpoint. And I think, to be clear, they've said nothing which tells you anything on how they would do with this. There's two problems here. The one is China gets a vote. And unlike dealing with Russia, Iran, or North Korea, China has a lot of options. And they'll decide after November, when they look and see who wins, on how they're going to respond to that. And who's ever president is going to have to deal with that. So I would argue at this point, future policy is going to be driven more how the Chinese choose to deal with us in the future than how he will deal with them. So here's the other problem for President Biden, which is all the things that we should be doing, you know what? They're already being done. So if he wanted to come in and have a successful foreign policy, he would essentially have to do the exact same things we're doing now. And when you're a candidate on the campaign trail, that's just not a big selling point.
Yeah, good stuff. All right.
I also want to get your take on how you think Hunter Biden, a documentary just came out, which is Riding the Dragon documentary, that really is damning to Hunter Biden's relationship to China. I want to play a clip from that real quick.
Hunter Biden's small investment firm announced a $1 billion private equity deal with the Chinese government. China is America's chief rival on the global stage, and nobody should know that better than Joe Biden. But Joe Biden talks about China differently.
China is not our enemy.
Not a problem.
What are we worried about? Come on, man.
He doesn't see them as a threat. He welcomes their rise as a global power. Why exactly? Perhaps it's personal. Perhaps it's about his family. Perhaps it's about the money.
All right, Jim, not to press you here, but only about 30 seconds left. Do you think that Hunter Biden has become an issue in this election?
Well, I think in a lot of these issues, the politics really trump the facts. I mean, these are serious allegations, but look, people that like Biden are going to vote for him because they like Biden. People that like Trump are going to vote for like Trump. And I think both their guys think that they'll do what's good on China. This is actually why I really admire the president. He's doing the right things on China, not because it's going to get him a bunch of additional votes, because the people that are going to vote for Biden, they're going to vote for him anyway. He's doing it because it's actually the right policies for dealing with China.
Okay. James Carafano, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks,
Coming up,
guys.
the economic picture appears to be getting brighter, but can it give the president the lift that he needs to win? We're going to ask presidential politics political analyst Dick Morris, and later the secret behind the COVID-19 death count. We'll be right back.